Can our brains get sick? How do we know when our brains are sick? Can our brains make us sick? How can we know when our brains are making us sick? It is answers to these simple questions that we will seek to answer in the next couple of videos. We have looked over many past video sessions at how to care for our bodies and how to prevent many illnesses. We know that maintaining good body composition, good nutrition, good fitness, avoiding toxins are all important in our achieving optimal health. We now move to the hardest area for any of us to manage, that being the relationship between the stresses of our daily lives and our ability to cope with those stresses. If all of the other above areas are perfectly managed and we have no control of our emotional self, we will likely not be able to maintain good health over the long term. We'll begin by answering the questions just mentioned. The answer to the question, can our brains get sick, is yes, our brains can definitely become sick. Brain tumors, brain infections like meningitis, brain trauma from head injuries, and strokes and ruptured aneurysms are all examples of sickness of our brain. We're so thankful for neurologists and neurosurgeons who have dedicated their lives to the treatment of brain disease. The next question, can our brains make us sick, kind of goes with the first question. We do indeed have many excellent tests to tell us that our brains are ill or becoming ill. These include CT scans, MRIs, arteriograms, spinal taps, and other measurements. The third and fourth questions, however, are a little tougher for us to answer because they are perhaps not so straightforward to most of us. Can our brains make us sick? Of course they can. How do we know when they're making us sick? It's sometimes difficult to tell. A better starting point with questions 3 and 4 is perhaps, how do our brains make us ill? Whenever we experience any kind of change in our lives from an external or an internal source, we say that our body experiences stress. The latter is defined as a mentally or emotionally disrupting or disquieting influence, a distress. Even minor changes in environmental temperature or the weather or a minor illness of the body creates change, and the change causes stress. Most of the time we don't think about it because we do what is called coping with the stress. In other words, we fix what's wrong, and the stress goes away. Unfortunately, however, many of the changes that we face are not easily fixed. When this happens, and stress lasts for more than a short time, our brains enter into the process of dealing with the difficult-to-fix change, and dramatic changes may occur in our physiology and our biochemistry, even in our structural selves. Suffice it to say that these changes are felt by many clinicians to be the cause of a great deal of the chronic illness that afflicts our society. Our brain, as the central processing unit for everything that happens in our bodies and in the environment around us, receives data and then sends out messages via the autonomic and peripheral nervous systems that extend out to all parts of our bodies. The autonomic system is an automatic system that runs without our thinking about it, and it's divided into a sympathetic system and a parasympathetic system. Practically, this is a very beneficial system. Our nervous system tells us to run away from the tornado, and we do so, and the stress level goes down. The problem is that there are many stresses that do not go away, and it is with these that we are concerned in this video. What happens when the stress does not easily go away with what we have available to us? A study done many years ago looked at the top 10 list of the most stressful situations that confront us human beings. The top 7 look something like this. Number 1, death of a child. Number 2, illness of a child. Number 3, impending divorce. Number 4, building or remodeling a home. Number 5, personal chronic illness. Number 6, financial crisis. And number 7, moving to a new location. We could all probably add a personal event or experience that has created a problem for our brains. What I want to discuss today is what happens to us biologically when these types of events happen. The answer is that lots of things occur. They can basically be divided into physiologic changes, hormonal changes, and fundamental biochemical changes. When we're faced with a fearful or anxiety-provoking event, we develop what all of us have been taught is a fight or flight response. Our brain tells our muscles and nerves to get ready for a crisis. The hormones adrenaline and noradrenaline are released from nerve endings all over our body and from the center of the adrenal gland. These hormones cause constriction of small blood vessels all over the body. Blood pressure rises, pulse rate goes up, airways dilate, and sweating often begins. All of these things may be good if we have to run away from danger. When the danger is always present, however, and the impending stress cannot be resolved, these changes may cause disease of our organs. High blood pressure may damage our hearts, blood vessels, and our kidneys, and make us vulnerable to strokes and heart attacks. How often have we heard of someone who was in a particularly stressful situation and then had an acute heart attack shortly thereafter? The fast pulse associated with fear or acute danger may precipitate skipped cardiac beats and arrhythmias and result in sudden death, especially in people who already have atherosclerotic heart disease. Increased rates of breathing associated with increased adrenaline may cause a person with epilepsy to have a grand mal seizure. The list of bad things that can happen when our stress mechanisms are activated is very long. The truth is that the system was put in place to take care of acute events and not chronic problems. The difficulty, as you can see in the list of stressful events discussed previously, is that many stresses do not go away quickly. The result is chronic change in our nervous system that can disrupt all kinds of body functions. Chronic anxiety with its associated autonomic nervous system changes may result in poor sleep and chronic insomnia, maldigestion of food, chronic constipation or diarrhea, aggravation of all kinds of pain, constant headaches, inappropriate sweating and tremor of the hands and feet, elevated blood pressure with all of its consequences, cardiac rhythm disturbances, weight loss or weight gain, increased need for a variety of medications with all of their side effects. Our brain, via our mind, will, and emotions, can also make us sick by causing us to make far too much adrenaline than we need for solutions to simple problems. The problem, however, is far more complex than just the negative effects of excess adrenaline. It turns out that our primary God-given stress response is governed by an even more important chemical process. Our adrenal glands, in addition to making adrenaline during times of anxiety, also is responsible for making a series of hormones that are collectively called adrenal steroids. The most important of these is cortisol, which regulates our immune system and controls a great deal of what is called metabolic activity in our bodies. Deficiency in this system leads to a condition called Addison's disease, which causes weight loss, malnutrition, weakness, fatigue, abnormal skin pigmentation, and a host of other symptoms. The opposite sort of thing happens when there is a tumor of the adrenal gland that makes cortisol. In this overproduction of cortisol situation, a whole new set of clinical symptoms occur, including increased body fat stores, loss of bone and muscle, increased insulin resistance and diabetes, cataract formation, high blood pressure, and severe rash and other dermatologic problems. More importantly, individuals who have such a cortisol-producing tumor lose their ability to kill germs and suppress tumor growth. As a result, very high cortisol production for long periods of time may result in chronic infections and increased risks of malignancy. When we're faced with chronic unresolvable stress, we may make 2 or 3 times as much cortisol as we should. This can then lead to the development of many or all of the symptoms previously discussed. Adrenaline and cortisol are important for our health, but when they're produced in excess due to fear, anxiety, chronic pain, or other life-disrupting influences, a broad variety of disease states may develop. Excess production of adrenaline and cortisol during chronic stress is the cause of much disease. There are other hormones like dopamine and vasopressin and glucagon that may be present in excess during times of unresolvable stress. All of these may cause distortions of our physiology and biochemistry and result in disease through activation of our autonomic or our automatic nervous system. In our next video, we will look at how we can know whether our stress systems are out of balance and what we can do to minimize the likelihood of our developing stress-related disease. I'll look forward to seeing you at that time.